Hello, I'm Ban Al-Bayati from Al-Mustansir University, Baghdad, Iraq. I'm going to read for you from pages 176 to 183, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Chapter 10, Creature's Tale. Harry woke early next morning, wrapped in a sleeping bag, on the drawing room floor. A chink of sky was visible between the heavy curtains. It was the cool clay blue of watered ink, somewhere between night and dawn, and everything was quiet except for Ron's and Hermione's slow, deep breathing. Harry glanced over at the dark shape that made on the floor beside him. Ron had had a fit of gallantry and insisted that Hermione sleep on the cushions from the sofa, so that her silhouette was raised above his. Her arm curved to the floor, her fingers inched from Ron's. Harry wondered whether they had fallen asleep holding hands. The idea made him feel strangely lonely. He looked up the shadowy ceiling, the cobwebbed chandelier. Less than 24 hours ago, he had standing in the sunlight at the entrance of the marquee, waiting to show in wedding guests. It seemed a lifetime away. What was going to happen now? He lay on the floor, and he thought of the Horcrux, of the daunting, complex missions Dumbledore had left him. Dumbledore. The grief that he possessed since Dumbledore's death felt different now. The accusation he had heard from Merle at the wedding seems to have nested in his brain like disease things, infecting his memories of the wizard he had idolized. Could Dumbledore have let such things happen? Had he been like Dudley, content to watch neglect and abuse as long as it did not affect him? Could he have turned his back to a sister who was being imprisoned and hidden? Harry thought of Godric Hollow, of graves Dumbledore had never mentioned there. He thought of mysterious object left without an explanation in Dumbledore's will. Harassment swelled in the darkness. Why hadn't Dumbledore told him? Why hadn't he explained? Had Dumbledore actually cared about Harry at all? Or had Harry been nothing more than a tool to be polished and haunted, but not trusted, never confided in? Harry could not stand lying there and nothing but bitter thoughts for company. Desperate for something to do, for distraction, he slipped it out of his sleeping bag, picked up his wand, and crept up the room, on the landing of Wizard Lamos, and started to climb the stairs by wand light. On the second landing was a bedroom in which he and Ron had slept last time they had been here. He glanced into it. The wardrobe door stood open, and bedclothes had been ripped back. Harry minded the overturned troll leg downstairs. Somebody had searched the house since the Order had left Snap. Or perhaps monks who had believed plenty from this house, both before and after Sirius' death. Harry gazed wonder to the portrait that sometimes contained Phineas Nicholas Black, Sirius' grandfather, but it was empty, showing nothing but a stretch of muddy backdrop. Phineas Nicholas was evidently spending the night in the headmaster's study at Hogwarts. Harry continued up the stairs until he reached the topmost landing, where there were only two doors. The one facing him bore a nameplate reading Sirius. Harry had never entered his godfather's bedroom before. He pushed open the door, holding his wand high to cast light as widely as possible. The room was spacious and must once have been handsome. There was a large bed with a curved wooden headrest, a tall window obscured by long velvet curtains, and a chandelier thickly coated in dust with a candle stubs still resting in its sockets, sold wax hanging in frost-like drips. A fine film of dust covered the pictures on the walls and the bed's handboard. A spider's web stretched between the chandelier on the top of the large wooden wardrobe. And as Harry moved deeper into the room, he heard a scratching of disturbing mice. The teenager Sirius had plastered the wall with so many posters and pictures that little of Wall's silver-grey silk was visible. Harry could only assume that Sirius' parents had been unable to remove the permanent sticking charm that kept them on the wall, because he was sure they would not have appreciated their eldest son's taste in decoration. Sirius seems to have gone out of his way to annoy his parents. There were several large Gryffindor's banners, fitted scarlet and gold, just to underline his difference from all the rest of the Cylinder family. There were many pictures of Muggle motorcycles, and also Harry had to admire Sirius' nerve. Several posters of bikinis glad Muggles girls. Harry could tell that they were Muggles because they remained quiet, stationary within their pictures, faded smiles and glazed eyes frozen on the paper. There was, in contrast, on the only wizard photo on the walls, which was a picture of 4 Howard students standing arm to arm, laughing at the camera. With a leap of pleasure, Harry recognized his father, his untidy black hair stuck up as back like Harry's. And he too wore glasses. Beside him was Sirius, carelessly handsome, with a slightly arrogant face, so much younger and happier than Harry had ever seen him alive. To Sirius' right stood Pettigrew, more than a head shorter, plump and watered-eyed, flushed with pleasure at his inclusion in his coolest of gangs. The much-admired rebels that James and Sirius had been. On Jameson's left was Lupin, even then a little shabby-looking, but he had the same air of delighted surprise at finding himself included. Or was simply because Harry knew how it had been that he saw these things in the picture? He tried to take it from the wall. It was his now. After all, Sirius had left him everything, but it couldn't dodge. Sirius had taken no chances to preventing his parents from redecorating his room. Harry looked around at the floor. The sky outside was growing brighter. A shift of light revealed bits of paper, books and small objects scattered over the crypt. Evidently, Sirius' bedroom had been searched too, although its contents seems to have been judged mostly. It's not entirely worthless. A few of the books had been shaken roughly, enough to part company with their covers, and some dry pages littered the floor. Harry bent down, picked up a few of the pictures of paper, and examined them. He recognized one as part of old edition of History of Magic by Bathilda Bagshot, and another as belonging to a motorcycle maintenance mantle. The third was handwriting and crumbed. He smoothed it out. Dear Padfoot, thank you. Thank you for Harry's birthday present. It was his favorite by far. 1 year old and already zooming along on a toy broomstick. He looked so pleased with himself. I'm enclosing a picture so you can see. You know it only rises about 2 feet on the ground, but he nearly killed a cat, and he smashed a horrible vase Petunia sent me for Christmas. No complaints there. Of course, James thought it was so funny. Says he's going to be a great cottage player. But we have had to pack away all the ornaments and make sure we don't take our eyes off him when he gets going. We had a very quiet birthday tea, just us and old Bathilda, who has always been sweet to us and who dotes on Harry. We were so sorry you couldn't come. But the orders got to come first, and Harry's not old enough to know his birthday anyway. James is getting a bit frustrated shut up here. He tries not to show it, but I can tell. Also, Dumbledore's still got his invisibility clock, so no chance of little exhaustion if you could visit. It could bear him up so much. Wormy was here last weekend. I thought he seems down, but that was probably the news about Mackens. I cried all evening when I heard. Pethelda drops it most days. She's a fantastic old thing, with the most amazing stories about Dumbledore. I'm not sure he'd pleased if he knew. I don't know how much to believe, actually, because it seems incredible that Dumbledore. Harry Extreme seems to have gone numb. He stood quite still, holding the Marcos paper in his nerveless fingers, while inside him a kind of quiet eruption sent joy and grief thundering in equal measure throughout his evidence. Vince, lurching to the bed, he sat down. He read the letter again, but could not take it any more meaning than he had done the first time. He was reducing to start at the handwriting itself. She had made her G's the same way he did. He searched through the letters for every one of them, and each felt like a friendly little wave glimpse from behind the veil. The letter was incredible proof that Lily Potter had lived, really lived, that her warm hand had once moved across this parchment, tracing ink into these letters, these words about him, Harry, her son. Impatiently brushing away witness his eyes, he reread the letter, this time concerning on the meaning. It was listening to a half-recorded voice. They had had a cat. Perhaps it had perished, like his parents at Gorlock Hollow, or else felled when there was nobody left to feed it. Sirius had brought him his first broomstick. His parents had none Pethelda packshots. Had Dumbledore introduced them? Dumbledore still got his invisibility clock? There was something funny there. Harry paused, pondering his mother's words. Why had Dumbledore taken James's invisibility clock? Harry distinctly remembered his headmaster telling him years before, I don't need a clock to become invisible. Perhaps some less gifts older member had needed its assistance. And Dumbledore had acted as career? Harry paused on. Hermione was here. Pettigrew, the traitor, had seen down, had he? Was he aware that he had seen James and Lily alive for the last time? And finally Pethelda again, who told incredible stories about Dumbledore. It seems incredible that Dumbledore. That Dumbledore what? But there were any number of things that could seem incredible about Dumbledore. That he had once received bottom marks in a transfiguration test for intense, or he had taken up Go Charming like Aberforth. Harry got to his feet and scanned the floor. Perhaps the rest of the letters was here somewhere. He raised paper, treating them in his eagerness. With as little consideration as the original research, he put open drawers, shook out books, stood on chair to turn his hands over the top of the wardrobe, and crawled under the bed and armchair. At last, lying face down on the floor, he spotted what looked like a torn piece of paper under the chest of drawers. When he pulled it out, it proved to be most of photography Lily had described in her letter. A black-haired baby was zooming in and out of the picture on a tiny broom, roaring with laughter, and pair of legs that must have belonged to James was chasing after him. Harry, Harry ticked the photography into his pocket with Lily's letter and continued to look for the second sheet. After another quarter of an hour, however, he was forced to conclude that the rest of his mother's letter was gone. Had it simply been lost in 16 years that he had elapsed since it had been written, or had it been taken by whoever had searched the room? Harry read the first sheet again, his time looking for clues as to what might have made the second sheet visible. Valuable. Second sheet valuable. His toy broomstick could hardly to consider interesting to the Death Eaters. The only potentially useful thing he could see there was possibly information of Dumbledore. It seems incredible that Dumbledore... What? Harry, Harry, Harry! I'm here, he called. What's happened? There was a clatter of footsteps outside the door, and Hermione's perched inside. We woke up and we didn't know you were here. Where were you? He said breathlessly. She said breathlessly. She turned and shot over her shoulder. Ron, I found him. Ron's annoyed voice etched distinctly from several floors below. Good! Tell him from me he's a god. Harry, don't just disappear, please. We were terrified. Why did you come up here anyway? She gazed around the ransacked room. What have you been doing? Look what I've just found. He held out his mother's letter. Hermione took it and read it, while Harry watched her. When she reached the end of the page, she looked up at him. Oh, Harry! And there's this too. He handed her the torn photography, and Hermione smiled at the baby zooming in and out of the sight on the toy broom. I've been looking for the rest of the letter, Harry said. But it's not here. Hermione glanced around.